We're on. Welcome to the Athletes Health Podcast here, talking to athletes, coaches, leaders, anyone we can learn some tips, tricks, tools from in that mental game, specifically tying it to the physical game, tying it to life. And, through some connections through the local area, whatever the case is, I met up with CJ Brick Joseph, and I'm very fortunate to have you on the show because I've been doing a little research and I know we can talk about a lot of different stuff. So I'm going to be excited to just see where this conversation ebbs and flows and what we can learn out of it, what we can, as in the athlete's health and the people who listen can gain from you, CJ. But if you want to start and just give us the introduction of kind of you, who you are, and I know we were just for some backstory, just talking, and we were starting to go into how you're named Brick as your nickname, and I'm sure we'll hear that story here a little bit too. But if you could give a little bit of background of who you are and kind of how you've gotten to where you're at today, and we'll dive into some rabbit holes and take it from wherever it goes, my guy.
For sure. Um, I'm originally from Muscatine, Iowa, so born and bred here, great old state of Iowa. Um, I lived there up until I was, 18. I moved to another town to go to college for a year, and I played college soccer in all 4 years. Uh, I was there at one school for 1 year, and then my brother. So I do have two brothers. Our middle child, well, middle brother, um, he is a year younger than me in school, and so he was kind of in that same process of picking a school and everything. And the coach at the time recruited him, and he called me and he's like, "Hey, And so I went and visited, and so I transferred to Co and was there for 3 years. So from 2018 to 2021 when I graduated. Um, and then I went on to do my master's in exercise physiology from St. Ambrose in Davenport. And at that same time, I got asked to come back to help coach um, at Co. And so I've been at Co, or one of our assistants at Co for just over 4 years. Yep.
Oh, that's pretty
And
cool. I
then,
didn't know you were at Co for that long.
yep. So I guess they need me that bad, I guess. But this past summer, actually, I got to do a little bit more coaching with. I don't know if you're familiar with the Cedar Rapids Inferno, who are they have a summer team here that plays uh, from like May to just before August. And so it's like guys that are from the area and come back home and are looking just for a team to play with. Guys that go to the schools around here, so like Co or Mount Mercy, or people in the area that still want to play high level soccer. Um, and so I got the chance to be an assistant with that squad.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering this just talking to you right now, is one of your aspirations to like stay in the coaching field and to keep helping the up and coming athletes, or kind of where do you plan to take what you've done? Because I know the masters in exercise phys is no short ordeal, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
I've taken some of those classes. I know it's a good amount of stuff, and
yeah,
your
for sure.
path to being back, it's pretty interesting to hear that and hear you keep coaching and staying in the soccer realm too. That's I know some soccer people, so it's a growing industry, right?
And yeah, especially around Cedar Rapids or just in Iowa, I'd say in the last 10, 12 years. But I'll do you one better. I actually didn't want to get into coaching at all.
Really?
I am dead serious. I Coming out of high school, my big thing was I still wanted to work in some capacity of athletics in the human body, things along those lines. Because reality is, like, I'm not a big person. I am 5'2". I am short and stout. There's like I knew it. I'm not going pro, and every kid meets their time when it's like, oh yeah, reality is. But I wanted to work in athletics. So things like athletic training. I actually wanted to be a physical therapist. Um, and so when I came to Co, I was actually a biology major, and then was taking kinesiology classes also to kind of get more perspective on the human body and things like that. So when I graduated, well, before we get there, my senior year, end of junior year, senior year was COVID. So kind of throws a wrench in everyone's plans. So me and my brother moved back home, and at that point, we weren't able to get. I wasn't able to get like internships at any of the clinics back home, just due to them having half capacity, just staff alone. And then at the time when they were like, oh, biggest carrier or who can get it uh, quicker is the elderly geriatric population. And
Okay, yeah.
so I wasn't able to do that, but ended up was able to do an internship um, on different lines of things here with Co, and then graduated in 2021. And then so I graduated the first week of May in 2021, and I started my grad school work probably like 3 or 4 weeks later.
That's
No,
at St. Ambrose for the exercise
yep.
phys?
Yep.
Okay.
So I was going to school in Davenport, and then how I initially how coaching kind of came to me was, well, before that, at this point, I was so burnt out from soccer. To be frank with you, like I didn't, because we would practice when we could, just because our competitive season now normally in college it's in the fall. It got moved to spring, so we were able to practice in the fall, and then a lot through the winter. Pretty much almost every day that we practiced, we could practice. Um, and we had a young group of guys at the time. And so then with that, we were conference only too. So we only played 8 games. Um, and so once I was done, I was honestly internally, I was like, oh, I'm kind of happy, because I was like, oh yeah, there's no, oh, I'm internally waking up, you know, 5 a.m. to be at the gym at 6 to lift, and then going to train in the afternoons at the hottest part of the day. I didn't have to do any of that anymore, so I had a lot
Yeah.
more space. And I didn't. I honestly it got to the point where like I didn't watch any soccer. I was like, I don't even want to hear about it. I don't care. And then after my summer term uh, of grad school, I get a call from the head coach at the who's still the head coach now, and he calls me and he's like, "Hey, we'd like to, you know, for you to be on staff." And I remember this because it was 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning, and I got everything I needed to get done for that day. I was in bed, just chilling, ready to watch Netflix, and my phone rings. And I'm like, "Oh, come on." Thought about it over that weekend and was able to tell him. The first person actually that I told that I got offered the job was my brother, um, who would have been a senior at the time. So this would have been the start of the preseason. So I had called my brother and I'm like, "Hey, um, here's the deal." They offered me. And my big thing was this was kind of his parade for intern. That's what I thought. And I'm like, "Hey, if you don't want me here, like, I know this is kind of your thing. Like,
Oh, because your
if
brother was at Co playing soccer?
yes, yes,
Yeah, okay.
yeah." So I was like, "Hey, it's your show. Like, if you don't want me to kind of be around, I totally get it. Like, it's nothing against you or me. Like, I got a lot on my plate as is, you know, with grad school." But he was really happy for me. And he's like, "Yeah, you might as well just take it." Um, and then because I was coaching, that kind of changed my perspective on what I wanted to do as a career. So going into grad school, I was still dead set on being a physical therapist. So I was in this master's program. So the program is only a year, and a lot of students use that program specifically to bolster their PT application.
Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of my plan. I was like, oh, I'll do this year, get interviews at SAU. If I get in, I'll get in, whatever the case may be. Um, but I remember sitting in class one day and I was like, I can't do this for 4 more years, 3 more years. Um, and I kind of wanted to change my perspective on what I wanted to do as a career. So I'm wanting to do like strength and conditioning work on the performance side of things. And so I get to kind of do that with our guys here and there.
So you had a little just because how the events lined up and things happened, and you had a little epiphany that maybe going to more of the performance side, the strength and conditioning side, instead
Yeah.
of the
My
physical
big thing
therapist
was
side.
kind of like ideally when I wanted to do this whole thing, I was like, XYZ athlete or general population person is, coming into PT to strengthen ground zero, right? From where they are from, the 6 weeks that they have to do their PT from that. But what if, we're able to raise ground zero? So essentially they can recover faster. They're able to return to sport faster, obviously with the proper monitoring of, with the ATs and staff and everyone. And so that was kind of the initial reason because a lot of my coursework was very science based. But as I've kind of gotten out of the classroom and been doing a lot more of that in both general population and with athletes, um, I've liked it a lot. It's a little bit more hands on, um, and it kind of allows me to be free about how I go about things.
Yeah, and you use still the scientific research and everything that you've learned of how
Yes,
to, but
yes.
you also are taking it a little more anecdotally too by the feedback that you get from when you're doing it, when you're helping these people out to make it more raise the ground zero so they
Mhm.
can recover faster.
Yeah,
And that's really cool to hear.
yeah. Um, it's just I remember like I was just like I don't, and I remember talking to my parents and they're like what, this is your career, like we're gonna support you, and I have the greatest parents ever, and I'll argue that I'll die on a hill. They're awesome, um, and yeah, they were just really supportive, and they're like what, we support you in doing this, and we got you.
So let me ask you this too. I mean, well, because the family part is so important, right? And I can probably
Yeah,
see that as it passes through your brothers. But one thing I was wondering, because I want to tie some things together for you, CJ, where anyone can find anything about you just super fast from your Instagram. Where I took some notes here, where it's
oh,
assistant coach at Co.
oh
It's
goodness,
the CR Inferno, but then
yes,
you got your personal trainer, sir. You got your National Strength and Conditioning Associate, Strength and Conditioning Specialist, right? You have continued this education on, which
yes.
I recently was talking to someone far along in the field of kind
Mhm.
of coaching and personal training and that whole aspect and that education, the people who go get it are who receive the next levels, who can tier up. And while you were talking with that, one thing I was wondering, because it can tie to your mama mentality that you have, or your going more hat that's on your head right now,
Oh,
is why did the coaching staff call you back to see if you want to coach? That's one thing I'm wondering. And then we'll talk because obviously
yeah,
here
no,
we
man,
always talk about the
it's a
mental
really good
side. I always bring it to the mental side at
no, for
some
sure.
point.
You know, think personally, I think that I don't know if anyone else is gonna say that. Leadership, I guess, is probably the best term that you could use. And leadership has always been a term used with me specifically when, and you can go back to like third grade or sixth grade or whatever. Like, like he's a natural born leader. And as a kid, and even up to out when I was in college, I never saw that. I was more of, hey, we're in a group to get someone's got to at least take charge, um, get ideas flowing, X, Y, Z, whatever. But as I said, we did have a lot of young guys. My senior year, guys that were so like senior wise, like it was literally me and another guy. So we were a very young and a young team, right? And um, I think just kind of being a solid foundation for guys. And I wasn't a guy that played a whole ton either, you know, um, but just kind of being there for guys outside of training or hey, giving some guys some you know got to be stern with guys in training, but going up to them after and being like, "Hey, look, I'm yelling there because I care about winning, as every athlete or you know person that's going after should want to care about. But it's not anything personal. It's nothing against you." And my philosophy around college soccer was like, look, it's such a minute at the time was like, look, it's a minute part of this lifetime, right? 4 years. My goal, honestly, like, yeah, look, performances happens, talent comes and go. My big thing was, I just wanted to be the best teammate I could, honest to God. And you know, uh, reality is in Division 3 sports we do have a lot of turnover. So like, I've had guys that only went to school with me for a year, um, or they stay the whole time there. And reality is, I just wanted to be a guy that hey, if something's happening off the field, if you got off the field issues and you need a buddy to talk to, I'm there. Um, especially with like younger freshmen coming in, sometimes they're a little timid coming into camp, right? Because they don't
Yeah.
know anyone. They're still at this point, trying to prove themselves, and sometimes it's just a lot of nerves for them. And if you could just be someone that hey, you're doing a great job, little compliments here and there, it really does a lot for them.
So you're saying just like, because I totally agree, and the leadership aspect is so huge, and that's great, amazing to hear. And even because you're saying, like, you might not have been the one who was always playing the most, or like maybe because sometimes you were on the sideline, but you were still leading the full way. And I think that is a piece that sometimes people don't always see or think about where that leadership can come from. It's not just the star players, but it's the person who can actually help it out. But let me ask you that, like, what makes it someone that much of a leader in that instance? Because I got a book over here, Kuzis and Posner. So this author, we
Hmm.
could talk about that more. I mean,
Sure.
that's the smaller book of some of their other books, but all they do is about leadership, right? I can go on and on and on about
I
leadership.
have a ton of books about leadership. And I'll just pull off my shelf right now. One of my favorite, I'll just pull these two out now. Favorite authors. I'm literally sitting on a stool under my couch because I didn't want to distance us. One of my favorite authors, Craig Groeschel. He is the senior global pastor at with Life Church. So I don't know if you've ever heard of that,
Oh yeah, yeah, I've heard
but
about
he
that.
does a lot of leadership things with uh, biblical meaning. So being religious has also been a big part of my life. So when it comes to just leadership qualities, I think everyone has them. It's just a matter of if you're willing to be outspoken about them. Because I remember, and I joke with my friends about this now. I was always the guy before practice who would go and roll out and do his band work. And because I know, like, internally, I'm like, oh, if I don't do this, I'm going to be stiff. But he would
Yeah,
see all the young guys go and they're just running around. And granted, I was 22, so I wasn't like, like my hamstrings are shot, like I'm 40. But I know it. And so they used to give me slack about it. And so, like, to this day, like, I'll bring it up and we'll have a laugh. But I think it's things just like leading by example. Um, like, I've always been a person, when it comes to leadership, it's the way that you treat people. Um, so, yeah, essentially, like, the treat your janitor is the same as you would the CEO. Everyone is a person. Don't judge someone from the house they come from. Um, that plays a lot into leadership because if you're just a person that just on someone this that XYZ, that you're not being a good person because eventually good habits brush off and it's like a trickle down domino effect. Um, excuse me, and then that's where you get like core pillars and things like that. That's how you build a culture.
yeah. Core pillars and culture. Yeah, I think you're right on that. Where that kind of distills the leadership, that brings it about. And one thing though, before this slips my mind, that I need to ask you about, and because
Yeah,
I think this is so cool, and I haven't heard this before, but you said that everyone like has a leader inside them, they just don't always express it. Basically, this is another
yeah,
way to phrase what you were saying. And
yeah.
I don't think I've heard that. Now let me
I,
play. I think I agree. Let me play devil's advocate because I want to get more of a response out of you. And what if some people would say no, they're just not really a leader. Like they're not doing it. But you're saying they can be a leader. It's just
there,
not being
everyone has qualities. It just might, it's depending on the situation. Some guys might be, the team captain or, the star athlete. I clearly wasn't. But if you treat something with professionalism or to the best quality that you can treat it, um, like, let's just take schoolwork, for example, right? You know, you we've been in college, we've had to do group work where it's like, someone has to, get everyone going.
someone's
That's
got to take
leadership.
charge.
I'm not saying leadership has to be, outright and diplomatic but just take charge. Leadership is it's essentially accountability, right? Where if we're together, let's just say we're playing a game, and we're being competitive, right? Let's just say we're playing pickleball, right? Pickleball is all the bee's knees right now, right?
Hype. Yep.
And believe it or not, still haven't played, and I live literally right down the street from Pickle Palace. So,
Really?
yep,
You never played pickleball?
never have. But
Wow. You gotta get on it, CJ. It is pretty fun. I want to be
I
honest.
know
It's
I've
pretty
been
fun.
my mom and dad have been like, hey, you should probably do it sometime. I'm like, yeah, just let me know. Hasn't come up yet. But as I was
Well,
saying,
we'll have to play sometime. We'll meet at
oh,
Jones Park or something. They got a
oh yeah,
bunch of courts,
definitely. Yeah, I'm
and we'll
still
play.
kind of new to the city, even though like I went to school here for 4 years, and I've lived here since September of 23. Like, there's only so much of the city I know, so I like to explore. But anyway, you know, even if it's just like let's just say we're partners in pickleball, and I'm not, and you're carrying me, right? Like your back hurts just because I'm just so bad, right? And you're like, hey, come on, let's go. That's leadership, but in an accountable way. Everyone has the capacity to become a leader. It's just a matter of it's not like you have to be, again, as I said, outright, oh, I'm the head honcho, I'm Tony Soprano or whatever, right? Like when you think of leaders, that's a terrible example, by the way. But um, it's just a leader is someone that's accountable for their actions and willing to take charge.
Yeah, it's almost to go off what you're saying, someone who is controlling everything they can control. Because, like, they might not be able to be, like, the
Absolutely.
playmaker every time, but they're still doing all the other things, leading the team in the ways they can,
Yeah.
and that can embark them on being that leader. And you're saying that everyone has the ability to do that if they want to, if they try to, if they put in
Yeah.
the effort, if they learn a little bit.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be the star player to be doing that and to elevate the team
Like,
then.
clear as day. I was not a star player. I mean, I can say that. I don't really care. But if you do your job, do your role, know your role. Like, again, like in sports, the game is a puzzle, right? Everything, you just gotta know your role, find your piece, see where you fit, do what you need to do, and then if
It's
you
the
know
game of
if
the
you
game.
need to pick up slack, pick up slack.
So
Because at
let
the
me
end of the day, like with winning, sorry, or with sports,
go ahead.
everyone wants to win. And so,
Yeah.
if you need a little, hey, let's get her moving. Sometimes that's all that's needed.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And so that's gonna tie me into this topic that I'm thinking of here, where like so my pillars here that I have, and I want to get your feedback to see how these can be improved, how these can be built. I have like clarity, confidence, and composure. Okay. These are things that I say that I believe we can help people with, that I can help people build. Then I got on the other side of the spectrum, which we don't have to talk about these too much, is like
Anyway,
stories.
sorry.
No, you're good. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I see like a curiosity.
I'm gonna
No, you're good.
because I don't
And then, like I said, I'll be able to cut all this out too, so it's really okay, I promise. No worries. Alright,
Sorry about yeah. I think he was still
so
we're so I'm actually going to play soccer in a little bit later in the day with him, and so I think he just wanted to know if I
nice.
was with him.
Yeah,
So
he
he
wants to get a
actually
little pregame talk going.
yeah. Anyway,
Um,
back to
anyways, okay. So, clarity, confidence, composure, I'm gonna come back to those.
yes.
I got, like, a commitment to something, a curiosity about something, and someone's character. That's the other side of it. And those are things that I feel like are a little harder to teach, a little harder to help out. You got them or you don't. That's my opinion with people I've worked with thus far. It's rightfully to change, though. Now, going back to the clarity, you got a vision, you gotta have a focused vision,
Absolutely.
confidence of yourself, of what you're doing, and your composure to stay calm
Cool.
on all the bumps and everything else. That's something that I'm seeing from a leader can do those, no has those, and it doesn't have to be the best person on the team. But through your experience playing and coaching and now the school, everything you've been through, how do you think you can build some of those up? I want some of your perspectives on this, on either having a clearer vision on building that confidence, being more confident, or handling any bumps in the road, those pressures. You can take that however you want, but I feel like you've had a good experience, good had not good as in like positive, but had the experiences to build these up, whether it's on you or coaching other kids, other people.
So I think when we go to that, what was the first three? Uh, I can't
Clarity,
remember.
clarity,
Clarity,
confidence,
confident, and composure. Right.
composure. Yep.
Um, I think a lot of it does come from my faith personally, where I learned to control the variables that I can control. Right. So
And as you talk, walk me through how faith relates to that, because so many people who come on here, CJ, talk about their faith in so many of the aspects, and it's nothing I always bring up, but it's always what the guests bring up, and so I
I
always
mean,
love to hear this. Thank you for tuning in to the Athlete's Health podcast. And I just wanted to share what we're all about. The Athlete's Health is an online mental gym helping athletes build confidence and resilience in both sports and life. Now, we've got something for everyone, whether it's the free newsletters, tips and tricks on them, or engaging social media content where we're broadcasting these episodes and sharing these actionable insights for you to take home and use right away. Athletes, coaches, parents, even teams, we're offering everything from these free resources to personalized coaching and monthly memberships in the gym. Plus, with partners who share our vision, we're creating multiple ways to check in and grow with us wherever you are. Now, if you have questions about the athlete's health or just want to chat about mental performance in life and just want to talk it up, reach out anytime. Now, together, we're building TAH Titans, those resilient, hardworking, and ready to conquer their goals people, athletes. Now, let's get back to this episode. Keep striving towards greatness.
yeah. So so I am Christian. I will get that. And so my faith has really, I'd say, in the last 2 years, definitely has been increased. Reality is, if you want to know God, you need to talk to God. And that starts with, you know, when I moved here, before that, I was doing online church, and it wasn't my style, to be honest. I was like, oh, I'm moving to a new city. I went to a church. I had a home church in Muscatine, very local, small population church. Um, Loved every minute of it. Um, and they're still great people. When I go back home, I run into them sometimes, and they ask me, how I'm doing, as one does. But I found a home church here. I go to Veritas, just on Third Street, I believe, downtown here. Um, and so things like, it's going to be on God's time. It's never our time as humans. We think, oh, it needs to, and I think I did my research too. So when you were talking to your fiance, by the way, congratulations. That's a big deal. So W's, we don't have chats, but W's in the chat.
Appreciate it.
But I think, traditionally, we think of things as everything has to be linear. Success, life is linear, right? So, like when I was, 22, 23, when I graduated, oh, like, I need to be at, like, we have certain checkpoints that we have, and they're usually chronologically based. Like, oh, I'm gonna own a home, and then I'm gonna get married, start a family, get a job, whatever the case may
Yeah, you just ran through the theoretical life right there.
be. Yeah, like, give me the board game, we're going. But success and life aren't linear, and I'm personally in a weird season in my life now where I'm waiting for something, and I know it's not on my time. And so I've really had to be like, hey, you know, be patient because I know God does have something planned for me and it's going to be better than I imagine.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to pause you super fast because I think that is such a important topic, and it's honestly something I'm working on a lot here too, where like and like I relate it to Matthew McConaughey's book.
oh, I read the
To
rest.
I relate it to green lights, and so I'm going to tie all this together. Where you want it so bad, you need it. It doesn't always come, but if you kind of sit back and just
Put her on the
be
back.
be more receptive and and almost not care as much, but still put in the work, keep doing the stuff, but don't need it. It seems to come around more, and that's I know this is so theoretical here, but I'll put it back in the sports analogy where like if I'm thinking back to like my high school days, which I don't like to talk about them too much, but
We
but
kind of go.
like I liked performance so much, and I liked like agility and quickness and speed. And I'm thinking back to year after year after year, I would try and dunk and I'd try to do all this quick and stuff. And it didn't really happen until my senior year when I kind of stopped putting all the effort in myself and then I found other people. So I was
Hmm.
more receptive of getting the coaching of learning.
For
And
sure.
that is when the just let whatever happens happens. I was like, all right, I'm putting my trust in there. I'm not going to jump from this to that to that. And that is when it really skyrocketed. So I put that back to your faith because and to your um this new chapter of almost being receptive of seeing what happens when it happens, as that is how it really will start to come to
Yeah.
fruition. So you go ahead and continue your story now of that timeline that you're on, but I wanted to
Well,
highlight that because that was important.
it's like, yeah, so I'm in a weird spot, I guess, in my life where, I'm not saying like, oh, at this point in my life, like, I should have done this. I should have this. When I like it, yeah, that's great. I know that's not going to happen. And again, that's totally faith based. I wish I can't think of any stuff off the top of my head right now, but um, and so actually, in one of these books, I couldn't tell you which one. Actually, I could, and I'll just pull it up right now. So, highly recommend it, by the way. So, Winning the War in Your Mind, fantastic book, by the way. It talks about ruts and trenches. Like, so I'm a little I can be a little history buff sometimes. So World War I, the concept of trench warfare. Do you understand that? Do you know
Yeah,
what
I
a
was
trench?
just
I guess the better term. Do you know like what the definition of a trench is?
well, I was just subbing a history class today at my old high school, Prairie, and it was about World War One. But definition of a trench, I think it's probably best if you explain it. If you go into your story and you
Yeah, for sure. So
fill
a
this
trench
one out,
is
paint the picture.
man-made. Essentially, it's man-made, but it's all muddy. It's kind of hard to get through, but it has a direction and it's kind of concise. Like you dig the trenches. And with ruts are naturally made. So like a landslide, or that's a rut where like you can't kind of get out. You can't kind of control that environment. And so in Winning the War with Your Mind, it's a lot of psychological with biblical backing to it. But along the lines of, as I said, that when we roll this back again, like we're all capable of being leaders or being the best human that we can be in whatever XYZ capacity, right? But this is saying in the book, it mentioned like we can, you know, change those uh, ruts into trenches to where, we can dictate our environment and we can dictate, um, you know, things that happen. and we're kind of able to control little things, but at the same time, reality is our God is still in control. He sees everything. He's known us by name from the moment we before we were born. So a lot of faith is seeing without believing. Um, and if you put your focus on God, things will happen. If you don't focus on God, you're just gonna, again, relating to grassroots, you're just gonna be waiting and waiting and waiting, and rain's never gonna come.
Wow, and call it so just for the audience too, call it call it God, call it the faith in the Christ, call it the
Faith,
faith in
faith in whatever
the
religion,
yeah.
whatever. Because, um, and this isn't just to Christians. I also do have a lot of friends that are Muslims, and they have their own set of beliefs. Um, I don't, personally know them, but um, they have their set of beliefs. But so along the lines of religion, they seek that, and they're able to, have a sense of guidance.
And so I'm going with that with like a different religion like the ones you're saying, or even just if you read the law of attraction and you think about the universe and quantum physics. I love to talk about physicists about quantum physics and hear their perspectives. It's so crazy to learn all that stuff. But the reason I say that is because you got some faith in where things are lining up through how things are working and how it's going. And within that, what you said of turning ruts into trenches. Once again, something I have not heard. Walk me through that. Give me that timeline of like some examples, maybe related to sports, maybe, but how that works and how it helps us out too. Because I think that's a big situation that many people can find themselves in. If we want to elevate that mental game, I think that's one key aspect to do. So I want to hear a little bit more of that, if that's cool with
Sure.
you.
So I was working for a company recently, um, and I had been there for a little bit. And so outside of coaching, I do actually have a full time job. So I was working for this company, and um, recently, um, at least the past year, business was kind of slowing down in the area, um, and I actually got laid off from this company. And so this was, I wouldn't say recently, but
Yeah.
for the timeline's sake, I had been working this company for a while, got laid off, but I was kind of freaking out internally, because like I had insurance with the company, benefits, you know, that's the reality of being an adult,
Yeah.
right? For you,
The adult
young,
world.
right? Yeah, but I had all these things, and you know, obviously, with what I was working in, wasn't what I wanted to be, as a career, right? Um, and I wasn't. I think I had a very calming sense of when it all happened, because I wasn't like, oh, I didn't like, oh God, why did you do this? Why did you do that? I could. That was my rut, right? Where I. But then I'd gone to church on Sunday, and I couldn't remember what they were talking about, but I got some mental clarity where it was maybe he did this, a door or opportunity will open up for me, and who knows when that door is going to open. And that's the cool thing, is that I'm not going to know, but when it comes, as I said earlier, it's going to be better than I imagined.
Well, exactly.
And
And
making my way, essentially, and relating this back to the trenches, where I'm kind of controlling, oh hey, where where I was like, oh hey, I could sit and kick around in this mud, not do anything, but I'll make my way, I'll to the pathway that I want.
yes, and so that's a great example of a rut situation, but then finding the trench, turning it into that trench, finding the trench, making it in the direction you're trying to take it go, but also letting it form and not being like need, I need, and you're actually digging yourself just deeper into the ground instead of an actual trench.
Yeah, no,
Um, and and I want to almost put that back into some of the things you've been doing, where that we've talked about already in this, where you do have kind of all the other certs, all the other knowledge. It's not just the certs behind your name, but all the other knowledge that comes with it
Never
to,
picks up the phone. Plain and simple.
yeah.
It's a long game, and I'm willing to wait. You know,
Hmm.
um, that's just the reality of the industry. It's how life works. And as I said, once that phone picks up, I'm there.
Exactly, and you keep finding those opportunities, and I put that back because I just the thing I really like with this is finding all the lessons out of the athletics and tying it to the industry, to life, to anything else. But with that, I put it back to the athletics where, like, you never know when your time's gonna come, or, like, maybe you do and you have an idea, but, like, it's all the daily work, all the daily stuff you put on it, because then that time does come eventually, and that's
I said, I was fortunate enough to play the extent what it was. Um, Actually, another fun fact: all every year that I was in college, I never had the same head coach.
really
I actually had three different head coaches while I was at Co.
that's pretty
So
crazy.
like as a personal thing, it was like, oh, where is our standard? Where is our bar? Um, because when you have, and obviously you went to Prairie, so you probably when did you graduate Prairie? I'm just curious.
2019.
So you would have been, so you would have known Drew Russell.
Oh, yeah, I know Drew.
Yeah, so he's a
Yep,
he's a buddy of mine. He played uh, 2 years at Co, 3 years at Simpton, and now he's actually at law school at Tennessee. Um,
yep. I beat him in fantasy
but
football.
oh yeah, good old Rocky
Yep,
Top, baby.
had to
But
rob that into him.
but we so the head coach of the men's side, Kurt Lewis has been there for as long as when I was in high school playing and times before that. So there, when you go into those camps or preseasons where it's like this is our standard, it from day one. So like personally for me, it was like, oh, I kind of know it, but it's not so clear cut, concise, consistent. So that was kind of my struggling thing with it.
And
Um,
having a bar. So this is a great topic too. Having a bar is so important. I was just coaching a team the other day, because for through like my mental coaching, and we were talking about your PRs, talking about your bars to set, and the fact that so many teams, or if they don't know about it, they don't have a bar, they don't have the PRs that they're working for. But that is one of the core principles. It ties back to the core values that you said earlier, the pillars. That's part of the bar, the PR that you're striving to be every year. And if the coach is evolving like that, I think it ties even more back to the individual leaders on the team to set the bar, find the bar, keep positioning the bar in front of the people to see so they have something to reach for.
yeah, no, most definitely, spot on.
And that's kind of what you were doing, I'm assuming, as
Yeah,
you
so
leveled up through the years at Co with that
yeah,
happening and taking your
yeah.
leadership
So
as the
my
person you were.
first couple of years at Co, so would bring a lot of guys in. So we actually had two squads. We'd have like a first team.
You know, you might as well, as you're talking about this story, tie in the brick thing, 'cause I gotta hear this at some point.
All right.
So
So
mold me a
I
story
honestly
here.
couldn't tell you how it started. It was my senior year when someone yelled it out. Couldn't tell you who. Just because I was a very short and stout, you know, guy. Very, I've been described as beefy. That's a weird term. I don't like it. Um, but it was like one of the weird nicknames that stuck. Like, I think the one before that I had, and it was cool. I liked it. It never really caught on, besides for two people, was Toast Malone. I really liked that one. I don't know why. Um, but someone just said brick, and it just like all the guys were just like, "Oh yeah, hey," and
You're like, "Oh,
it
yeah."
just kind of stuck, I guess, for that year. And obviously, I'm not planning on coming back at this point, right? Like once I'm done, I'm done. So it's like, oh, I don't have to see you guys. Maybe the alumni game that happens every year. But then some of the guys, my first year coaching were juniors and sophomores at this point, and my brother and his four guys in that senior class. Um, and so then it was Coach Brick, and then I wasn't like, oh, don't call me that. Like I didn't honestly, it wasn't like bad. Um, but then I just like threw it on my Instagram just because, and so like again, this being my
Embrace it.
first year with Inferno, um, I'm friends with a lot of those guys now that are kind of out of school and will go and do things, and um, they're like you'd follow them on Instagram or whatever, and they go and look at your profile, and they just call me Brick. It's not even like they know my name, but it's just it's there, and uh, I like it. I think it's kind of grown on me, and I don't know anyone else called Brick besides that kid from the show The Middle.
That's what I just thought
Who
about
just
that when you
happens to
said.
be a short kid too, but has I don't think it has any relation.
Nah, and I don't even know. I think that's his real name. I don't think that's his. I did not even think about
To,
that. So you just said I don't know anyone else
I guess I
called
was like
Brick.
doom scrolling TikTok before this, and I saw.
And so then tell me how, because I think even having the name Brick can help set the bar. But as a leader, so this one's a lot about leadership. But I'm liking that, CJ. How how do you set the bar? Like, do you just remind people of it, or like, what are
So,
some ways?
and this has always been a thing, even in high school training sessions and club training sessions, through college and coaching. I'm cool with you before training, um, or like when the guys are in the weight room, like before the actual session starts. I'm cool if you're giving your friends, dapping them up, joking around, fun stuff, right? Outside, they're student athletes, they're humans. Let them have fun. I'm not gonna be like, oh, you're at the field, blah. The moment, so let's just say training starts at 6, right? The moment 6 hits, you need to be locked in like Game 6, LeBron. Like, and I'm the moment went from the warm up to the end of training. When we're doing drills, pay attention. Um, my philosophy, I guess, if you want to call it, um, as a player, is that I should know what everyone else, at least the basic principles of what everyone else needs to do. Because if I can make their job easier, they're able to make someone else's job easier, to make someone else's job easier, and everything flows like a raging river. And trust me, and I don't know how if you've watched a lot of soccer, once you get an attack going and it's just ding, 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 it's
It's
some of the
it's
most
over.
beautiful football you can watch. Honest to God. But that was my
Like
thing.
unstoppable.
I was locked in from like that's where my attention was. Not that when you go get a water break, you're kind of a little bit, oh hey, good stuff, whatever. But the moment we're doing something, there's an activity, you got to pay attention. Um,
Yeah, you set the bar.
that's the bar. That's really what the bar is. It's not. I think we, you know, as coaches, we make it seem like it's so lofty. It's not. It's right there. You just got to look and build. It's like I don't know. You probably are familiar with this being a mental health coach, like SMART goals. Like we used to do them a lot in high school. Honestly, I still do them. Like when I I didn't do one this year. It was like things I want to accomplish this year. I'm not a New Year's resolution person by far, but it was like I guess like 3 goals I had for the year that I wanted to do. I was like, oh, goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. How am I going to do that? You know, so let's just say it's like someone that wants to lose weight, right? It's like I want to lose weight, whatever the case may be. How am I going to do that? I'm going to change up my diet. How am I going to do that? Maybe it's only go out to eat once or twice a month and cook at home. Um, maybe go to the gym 3 days a week. It's the little things over time, getting like compound interest. A little bit turns into a lot over time.
And does that relate to your Go One More hat that you got on right there?
A little bit. So, my Go One More hat. For the people that might not know, this hat is from Bear Performance Nutrition. Nick Bear, he is a um, ultra athlete kind of person, CEO um, of Bear BPN, Bear Performance Nutrition, and he was in the military, and so he kind of built his brand on this. Hey, you know, his story is he was running and he was wanting to quit his run, his long run or whatever, because I think he was in like a marathon prep or whatever. And uh, he wrote, he had a different hat on, wrote like "Go One More," and so every time that he would look up when he was running, he could see it in the top of his hat. And so that was kind of his goal, and then that's how he kind of pushed his business. So
Yeah.
he's a guy that's ran like, and he's a big like. I encourage you to watch his videos. Very good, cool guy from what it seems, out of Texas. But he's a big jacked guy. Like he proper military, but he runs like he's ran a 2:30 marathon.
Yeah, I know exactly. Oh, that was loud.
Yeah.
I know exactly who he is. I know some people who actually know him, and it's pretty cool. Here in Cedar Rapids, we're trying to build our own, going more our own thing with the athlete's health, and really try
Nice.
and make that a huge thing within the area, which is why I love to hear that from you. And I just wanted to translate back one more time your thing you said in the bar, because that was a new thing I didn't hear too. Of it almost starts to cascade from one person to the next, and then it's not hard to keep the bar up there if if the flow is cascading down to the next person. If you jump over and then it just goes to the next person and they jump over, it's
So
not a try and
if you
drag them over.
like basketball, every position 1 through 5 has the rules. 4 and 5, hey, boards, wings run, one runs offense. I'm not a basketball player, obviously. Um, but everyone has their set rules. And so, like, for guys that are coming off the bench, you're expected, hey, know your role, keep the energy. Because the moment one of those kind of falls off, it gets a little shifty, but you're still able to, you might be able to get something out of it. Or, maybe they're just having an off night, something happens, it's not flowing the same. But again, as I said, if you can make someone else's job easier, especially in like team sports or even in like a work setting, um, I don't see why it wouldn't. If it makes your company or your team perform better or more efficient, I guess not better, more efficient, by all means.
Efficiency is key. Yeah, you make me think a couple of things, and I mean efficiency
Yeah,
is
I've been told
key.
I don't think like a normal person, but
No, I
many.
like it. I love it. And you're
Yeah.
just making me you brought this back to me, to my hunger to make this to the BPN. We're gonna put that in Cedar Rapids. We're gonna put that in Eastern Iowa to Iowa and beyond. TAH is gonna turn into that by how I have the vision going. But it ties into everything we just talked about from here today with you, and it's people like you, CJ, who will make that into an actual thing. And with all that said, I'm really just wondering. I always like to kind of wrap it up, end it with like one big take home, one final message that you got. And I bet you could have a couple pretty important, pretty big ones, but wrap that up with me because I want to hear it from you, and then I want to know how people can find you too before we close up the shop.
So I guess the big takeaways, I guess, is everyone is capable of being a leader, and I don't exactly view leadership as top dog. You can be a leader in your life by being the best person that you can be. That doesn't mean it's going to happen right away. You know, hey, you got to have faith. Faith isn't a biblical term. Faith is just seeing without believing. If you have a vision, I actually have a quote here. Funny enough, it was from a Nick Bear video, and I have a notes with all just random fun quotes. A little iPhone soccer
From
cheat code
anyone?
video. I have a buddy.
Yeah.
I gotta find it. And it's regarding to vision. Um, vision is the art of seeing what's invisible. So everyone's able to be the best version of themselves. You just gotta believe what you see.
How can people find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram uh, at Charles Joseph. No, it's not that. It is. I think it's the Charles Joseph 16. I have to look. Yeah, the Charles Joseph 16. And that's kind of the main one. My Twitter, I believe, is the same, or X or whatever they're calling it. That's kind of all really the social media that I use. So
Cool. Oh, that's good. 'Cause I mean, I'm just thinking some people might have questions, anything else for you that
absolutely,
they
I'm
want to reach out.
willing to have a healthy discussion. I love a good discussion. I had a bunch of conversations yesterday. I was on Snapchat and I'll just read it because it's we like to have fun here, don't we, Gabe?
Yeah, dude.
And
And
I
go
just
ahead.
some random thoughts. I was just sitting on my couch last night watching. I think the Bucks were playing or something, and couple thoughts. Um, and number one, and people berated me for this one, was Tron Legacy is a top tier movie and deserves much more love than it does. I love that movie. It's amazing. And Big Time Rush never made any bad music. Those are hills I will die on.
I knew some Drake Relays champions who listened to Big Time Rush before
That's what
every
I'm saying.
race, believe it or not.
Just saying.
Believe it or not, yeah. And I just want to conclude this before we wrap it up with your last quote there. The only reason I was just like, yeah, is
That's
because
great.
I feel like it's self-explanatory. Like there's nothing I need to say in addition to that. That it kind of concludes it.
Uh, and one thing that I attribute, and I'm glad that this conversation can go on, but I'm a hard worker, and hard work does pay off. It just doesn't. It's not going to be when you think about it. It's when it's time for your hard work to pay off.
Looking back and from everyone I talked to, the hard work pays off at different times for different people, but it seems like the hard work always does pay off. And I always say you can connect the dots. Looking back, you just can't connect them looking forward, so you got to keep going. And that was from Steve
Man,
Jobs, I think. Let's see. Any last things, CJ? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up, get a little conclusion going on.
thank you again for having me. Wonderful dialogue. I honest to God, would love to do this again. Maybe where it's not dark outside. But we'll definitely. I'd love to have another conversation again.
No, I think we will, and I know because I know we'll wrap it up soon, but we'll be talking off the podcast too, and we'll get
Definitely.
something going in person eventually here. Like I told you, just had some things
Yeah.
come up, or I think I got to work on that.
Business, and that's cool.
Yeah, with other people, I gotta slowly get that one going, but we're gonna get something in person going sometime, dude. And like I said, appreciate this, just helping me grow the athlete's health and help more people out, coach more people, get the mental side of the game, just like a mental gym.
For the underdog, helping the little guy to get where he wants to be. So
Perfect. Well, we'll catch you next time.
people's champ. So
Peace.